Over the years, I've owned many unusual cars. Probably the most unusual car that I have that people would say that's the most unusual would be my Peel P50. The thing is, the Peel P50 has become extremely recognisable thanks to Top Gear and endless amount of media coverage. It's a very well-known car nowadays. But what I have here is totally one of a kind. This car I have named Toady, after the great Mr. Toad of Wind in the Willows. The reason it hasn't got a specific name, or at least a model name, is because it's kind of a made-up car. You see, if you were to look it up online, on the DVLA website, it will say a 1949 Ford Prefect, because that is what it is under the bonnet. But clearly, to anyone that knows about old cars, this is not aesthetically a Ford Prefect. But it's a bit of a confuser. People constantly say, well, oh, I've not seen one of those before. What is it? And I say, well, it's a Ford Toady. So yes, it's a Ford, but it's certainly a one of a kind. Now, the thing about this extraordinary machine is the fact that it's a made-up car. So I don't know a huge amount about its history, and if it ever comes to light, I'd be very interested to know. All I know is it was built in the 1960s off a Ford Prefect, and it's made out of either genuine old car parts like these headlights here, or made up parts entirely, and sometimes it's quite hard to tell which is original and which is fabricated. So yes, aesthetically it's got that kind of elegant Edwardian look, the kind of pre-Model T Ford design, but it's also got a strange kind of pickup design at the back, which personally I've never been too keen on. Also, the rear lights are a little bit pantomime for my liking. Essentially these are, from what I believe, a Model T Ford headlight, the acetylene ones, which would be 1914 and earlier, with the front cut off, sacrilege, and instead a horrible acrylic red lens put in there, which gives it that kind of theatrical stage light kind of design. So I'd definitely change those to something more in keeping. However, saying that, I have actually retrofitted these myself. These I bought for a price I am not willing to disclose. These are genuine motoring lanterns from the Edwardian time. I don't know the exact date. They're oil lamps, so they have paraffin in them now, and they are surprisingly effective, at least at not blowing out. They're not designed to light your way, they're simply designed that other motorists can see you, bearing in mind we're talking 1910s kind of time. The headlights, however, these are definitely original lights that have been put on here. Inside, however, the light bulbs are mere side light bulbs. They do the job, but I tell you, driving at night has always been a little bit hairy in this. Another thing that often catches people out are the wheels. The front ones, okay, they look fairly original in some respects, but they've got these kind of lugs on here which have been welded on. But the rear ones raise even more questions. So, oh boy, what have we got here? A lot of attachments. So these are the drum brakes, presumably from a Ford Prefect. I certainly think they are. And people say, well, these are almost like auxiliary wheels that you'd see on some kind of farm machine. I have no idea what they're from, and they certainly raise a lot of questions. As for the controls on this remarkable machine, well, if I was to climb inside, let's have a little look. So the gear stick, I've never been too keen on this kind of chromy design. It's not in keeping with its Edwardian aesthetic. But the gearbox is the standard layout for the old Fords, a bit like my Prefect I used to have. So basically, backwards is first, that's second, and then that's third, which is top, and then forward, where first normally is reverse. It might sound a bit confusing, but that was standard for the time. However, something that's not been standard since maybe at last the 1920s is the fact it goes clutch, accelerator, brake. So it's what you call a central throttle, and it can be a bit confusing, but for me personally, I've adapted to it extremely quickly. But you do have to watch out, because if you want to stop and you hit the wrong one, you're either going to go super fast or you accelerate and you're going to hit the brakes. We've got this enormous steering wheel here, which gives you the torque you need to actually turn the steering, although it's a very lightweight car, and it's one of those ones where you really only want to turn the steering if the vehicle is moving. You have your horn here, And then down here, well, where do I start? Okay, you got your ammeter, which is telling you how much power the dynamo is charging. That's your ignition switch, so there's no ignition key on this. This is your headlights, so one flick down for side lights, which is just the rear ones, because the side lights on this are, of course, oil. And then all the way down for headlights as well. And then this, okay, right, this here is very unusual. That is a vacuum pipe, because the old Ford Prefects had vacuum wipers. So the infrastructure is there to have something powered by vacuum. But notice, there's no windscreen on this car. So instead, the vacuum pipe is connected to this, which is seized. And if you follow it, it goes all the way to the front, where you will find an air horn. So it works on the negative pressure, the vacuum essentially, from the engine. I don't know what it sounds like, it doesn't work, but it must be quite an unusual one. As well as that, we have this is the gravity-fed fuel line down here, and this is some kind of fuel filter, or at least a low spot where any debris can kind of collect in the bottom and bypass. So as for that fuel line, here's your fuel tank. I believe that this is off an old lawnmower, something like a Dennis or an Atco or something. Gravity fed, so simply it's higher up than where the engine is, so it feeds all the way across, goes across there. It doesn't look like it should work very efficiently, but I've never had any problems with it. So what about what's under the bonnet, under the hood? We've got this lovely kind of Edwardian style race car strap to hold the sides down, and when I open it up inside, haha, it is revealing what it really is. So firstly, I'll point out that this radiator here, where I've got this beautiful Toad, this used to be from a canal boat for the tiller. This is a false radiator. Whether it's an original one that's been gutted or it's been fabricated from scratch, I don't know. If it is fabricated, they've done a very nice job of it. But underneath we have the actual Ford Prefect engine. This is the very famous Ford side valve, 4-cylinder jobby. You've got the gravity-fed carburetor, as I mentioned earlier. And then this radiator is not off for a Ford Prefect. It's almost reminiscent of like a Morris Minor one, because the Ford Prefect, normally the radiator sits considerably higher and you have a very sharp drop down for your thermosiphon cooling. So theoretically this will cool very inefficiently because there's not much of a drop there, and there's no water pump on this. That being said, even in the summer, I've never had this vehicle overheat. Maybe it's because of the lightweight construction, it's very understressed, I don't know. But I've never had a problem, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So this is just the other side where we've got some retrofitted wiring that's been put in. I myself have fit electronic ignition, which has made a hell of a difference with the performance of this. You've got the old style starter motor, a retrofitted oil filter, so this was an optional extra for the car when it was new, when it was actually a Prefect, and this has been fit by the last owner. And then of course you've got your dynamo, which is a 12 volt negative earth dynamo on this. Now, just before anyone gets funny with me in the comments, that I know that originally Ford Prefects were positive earth and 6 volt, but this has been changed, not by me, at some point to negative earth, 12 volt. So starting procedure is turn the tap on to gravity feed the fuel to the carburetor. Next, we're going to get in and take it for a little drive. Right, okay. So first thing I'm going to do is just switch the ignition on. It has been running, so I won't need the choke, but I push this button to engage the starter motor. There she goes. Give it a bit of throttle. How about that? A push button start. That's something that really expensive cars have nowadays. And then I'm simply going to pop her in gear. Remember, first is where second normally is. Give it a bit of throttle. Raise the clutch and hey, 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 woo! Off we go. Poop, poop. One thing about having no windscreen is it's very windy, hence the name, and it's not super warm today, but I wouldn't normally be wearing a jumper on a nice day like this, but you're gonna need it in Toady. Woo! I tell you, there's another thing with not having a windscreen. It takes me back to when I'm riding motorbikes. You need a visor. So in this case, under my seat, I've got a few things under here. One of which is a spare fuel can. Also where the battery sits, and I've got various tools and things. But look, I've got this, or these I should say. So these are an Edwardian windscreen. Let's go. Now, at the moment, I am holding back on the throttle simply because my camera is going to have a lot of wind and interference and you won't be able to hear me. But this car, unlike an Edwardian car of this kind of style, can actually get to about 40 miles per hour. Now that might not sound particularly quick, but I'm telling you, in a car with no windscreen and the kind of dimensions that Toady has, it's truly terrifying. And at those speeds, you really do need to have your goggles on, because otherwise you're not going to be able to see a thing. Ha ha! This car, although it's a Ford Prefect under the bonnet, it's got that aesthetic of an Edwardian motor car. So it gives you a nice kind of feel of what it was like to drive a motor car in the early days of motoring, pre-mass production of the Model T Ford and everything, just without the ridiculous cost. If you buy a car from say 1900, 1905, you can be looking from 60 to 100 grand or more, which is absolutely obscene. You get a lot of people saying, oh, I wish younger people would get into cars, old cars. Like, well, this car's, yeah, that'd be £180,000. Great. But a car like this, yes, it's made up. It's not an original, but you can still have a huge amount of motoring fun with it. Now, one of the things about Toady is the suspension. A standard Ford Prefect has transverse suspension, but this one actually has inline, independent suspension, which is great, but it is quite bouncy, and it does tend to kind of roll along the ruts and bounce around the place. Now, what you've got to be careful, if you are going too quick over these bumps, there's no seat belts or anything like that. I mean, hell, it doesn't even have doors, let alone a roof and sides. If you go over these bumps too vigorously, you could easily like kind of fall out the car, and if you were to do that, this car wouldn't stop. It has a habit, it's a bit like a lawnmower, it just kind of keeps going on its own accord. If I was to like jump out, now I want to show what it's like to drive this car at night, which is something not many people would actually bother doing. So first thing I need to do is light my lights. Right, the last of the blue sky is just fading away, and I just thought I'd show what it's like if you've only got the paraffin lights lit, which you would never use to actually light your way, but the road is pitch black without them. But with the headlights, we'll get by. Overall, the camera probably can't see as well as the human eye can. It's very dim, you know, it's not recommended, but it's bright enough that you can see where you're going. Obviously, if you've got street lights and things, it's not a problem. And the headlights on this are certainly bright enough that other cars can see me absolutely fine. But I've deliberately gone down this country lane that has no lighting whatsoever just to kind of show what it's like, but it is possible. driving on some private land, I can kind of demonstrate some of the little fun features that you can do with this car which you wouldn't do on public roads. For example, because it can kind of self-drive, I can get out the car and just stand on the side. So my little nephew Dylan, he's driven this car where he's sat in it, and I've just had it on tick over like this, and we've just been driving down. Or if I fancy stretching my legs, I can just get out and have a walk. It's not a problem. Just steer the car so it doesn't go in a hedge, and you're all good. And when it's time to get back on, hey, don't run away from me. Hey, just jump back on the side. This is a unique feature. Oh, it's not really a feature, it's just a quirk, which I've never had with any other cars that I've owned, and it makes it very entertaining. So I'm going to jump back in. Don't want to freak anyone out. Guys, Toady. What a beautiful, fun car. That's what this car is all about, fun. Someone in the past said, right, I want an elegant Edwardian car, but I want it to go so I can have a lot of fun in it. It's a perfect example of British ingenuity, which is why the last thing I'm going to do is fly the flag triumphantly.